right, welcome back, everybody. This is the first edition of the Prospects Live 2021 Draft Show. I, of course, am Ralph Lifshitz. I am joined by Joe Doyle from the site. We're going to be doing this pretty much every single week on YouTube, as well as in podcast form as well. I'm really stumbling on my words here, Joe. But more or less, we're going to dig into the class. And I think today we want to just sort of put the follow list out there. We have some loose rankings based off of, what we've seen really in 2019 more than 2020, because we didn't get a whole lot of baseball there. But we have more coming. There will be a showcase circuit. We have PG National coming up, over the next couple of days, actually, as we're recording this on Tuesday night. So things are going to change. We're going to get new reports. Guys are going to potentially come out of quarantine or isolation, so to speak. Different players, maybe with different bodies, new pitches. Who knows? There's some time to work on things or time to not do anything at all. So it will be interesting what we see here in the coming weeks and months. We're going to try to document all of it. And, obviously this is going to lead up to next June, a year from now. I think you said 355 days. Is that the exact number? Something like that.
About a week, less than a year.
Well, I'm doing all the talking, Joe. So why don't you jump in here? Let's talk sort of high-level thoughts on this 2021 class.
Yeah, man. So I just you can't start the conversation without thinking about, I think, where we've come from. So you look at 2020, and what's the story? It's college pitching. It doesn't look like that is necessarily going to be the case in 2021. Sure, there's some headliners that are going to show up in the lights, as there are every year. But man, this is a stacked prep class from the outset. I mean, we'll see how it develops, but there's a lot of good up the middle talent this year, and there wasn't last year. Hell, there hasn't really been a lot of up the middle talent, with the exception of 2018 in a while. So I'm excited to see how the prep shortstop class kind of irons itself out, and where these kids end up, where their stock ends up in a few years, or I guess a year from now. And then there's a lot of left-handed hitting. I mean, there's a ton of college mashers from the left side this year that I think we saw some of in 2020 as well, but and small school guys too. I mean, we're talking the Sam Houston States. We're talking the South Alabamas. We're talking guys that are, popping up after not being big names on the high school circuit. So it's going to be fun. I'm really excited to dive into the showcase circuit and eventually get back to college baseball and see this class kind of sort itself out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the biggest thing for me. And I'm actually just making a change here onto one of our rankings. Listing Irving Carter, who's a player I think we'll probably discuss maybe some point tonight, but certainly over the next several months. There's just a lot of interesting bats between the prep class, and the college class. And I think that for fans, there's a lot of excitement there. I think it ties into fantasy a little bit. But people sort of get excited about it. But it's also something that is more tangible. If this could be everyday guy, like I think fans sort of get more excited about that. There's a lot of really young players to get excited about, a little bit closer to the majors guys, as you mentioned, with the college hitting, with guys like, Benawas or Wilson, who already have showed, from a pretty young age in college, the ability against advanced pitching. Though I know South Alabama plays some good teams. The schedule isn't, crazy, but he was Sun Belt Player of the Year as a freshman. And you look at the numbers, it's the same thing with Benawas, high OBP guy with a lot of power. It's all fields power with both of these guys. Those bats are something that teams chase. I mean, we even saw it in this draft with a guy like, Aaron Sabato, who was rumored to go as high as 14, but went, within the first round to a pretty smart team. And the Twins in particular have drafted a lot of those players. So it's still a profile that teams will chase in the first round too. So I think that's interesting. And there's a lot of college pitching, and a lot of this has to do with the shutdown outside of Kumar Rocker that, even the guys at the top of the draft, we haven't seen a lot of track record against Division I competition. A guy like Jack Leiter, Jaden Hill, really exciting talent from LSU, but he's been hurt, and we haven't seen the amount of innings that we typically would have seen with college pitchers at this point in time. So I think that's a huge question. Steve Hadger, who's a lefty from Michigan, local, Andover guy from Massachusetts that I love. I think this arm is super exciting, but there's a limited track record because he had a UCL injury. He missed, all of his freshman year, and he only had a few starts in the sophomore year. So we're going off of like 3-4 starts, sometimes against midweek lineups with these guys in bigger programs. A guy like Ty Madden, for example, never was able to throw strikes, made some tweaks down the Cape last summer, shows up, looked pretty dominant. I mean, I think he only had like 4 or 5 walks, and it was because he showed much more advanced feel for his breaking ball and was, landing his fastball at both sides of the plate. It's stuff like that we didn't see for a sustained period of time.
Well,
that's a big question,
and they're all going to be fresh arms, especially if there's not a Cape. And I think they're going to find a way.
There isn't a Cape. There's no Cape.
I think they're going to find a way to do summer ball. I think they're going to find a way to get these. Yeah, there's going to be some college circuit season that gets these guys out in front of people because, you look at someone like Jack Perkins at Louisville, who has all the stuff in the world, but he's got 11 college innings, and he's going to be draft eligible this year, and he's got first round stuff. It's just a matter of, is he going to be able to, put 70 innings on the board at any point? Christian McCleod at Mississippi State, another high profile lefty, deals with pneumonia his freshman year, and now he deals with pandemic his sophomore year, and all of a sudden, you're a calendar year away from being draft eligible, and your resume is 17 innings and 35 strikeouts. That's insane. That's insane performance, but nobody's going to draft 17 innings. I mean, you look at how far, Nick Bitsko could have been a top 5, top 8 talent, and because he didn't get to pitch, he tumbled. So there's going to be a little bit of that with these college pitchers this year. And I'm just excited to see talent get on the field. Another thing that wasn't brought up is maybe we're being a little bit too over anxious with this prep talent class that's coming in, but our top 50 is 25 college players and 25 high school players by total happenstance. I mean, we didn't plan it out that way. And the first round, I mean, there had to have been 22 college players and maybe 8, 7 high schoolers taken this year. So yeah, I'm excited to get baseball in front of us again, man, so we can start to, iron these rankings out and figure out who's valuable and who's going to fall and rise and all of that.
Yeah, and I think, part of the situation with preps this year versus, previous years was, there wasn't the bigger bonus pool to potentially throw some of that money around and pull some of those guys down. And the market was just different. It just depended on how much a guy really wanted to sign. And I think teams will probably had to have 100% certainty with some of those sort of picks. So, if we have the 20-round draft this year where we're cutting out some of the fat, we're probably going to see a higher number of prep players get drafted. I think the other thing too is, in my mind, there's less surprises in the college ranks, meaning when those guys come into pro ball, the percentage of those players, of that profile, college, whether hitters or pitchers, that really change who they are or expand and grow and blossom, it's just smaller. They're older. We have more of a track record against advanced, pitching too,
that's the key.
or advanced hitting. When we look at SEC lineups, I don't think, even with guys that don't play a second of pro ball, or maybe you're independent or whatever, but a lot of the bottom of those lineups really aren't that different from what you see in like short season. Like,
no, and that's why they succeed.
Play short season and then never play again.
Well, that's the reason those college guys go up to short season and hit 400.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you get a college kid like Zach Veen, for example. If Zach Veen went out and played short season, you may think the world of him, but he might hit 215, and that's just the way it works. Meanwhile, you get like a 4th round pick, like a Tyler Keenan from Ole Miss. You throw him to short season, and he hits like 14 home runs and 400. So
exactly.
It's just polish. It's exposure.
Exactly. So, that's the part of the prep ranks that's exciting too. You see these talented players and you're like, all right, this guy could be so much more. I do think this prep class in particular seems to be loaded. There's a lot of arms, there's shortstops. And I think that's the biggest thing is when there's defensive value tied to players and it's up the middle value, center fielders, guys who legitimately are center fielders that maybe end up being right fielders, but there's no question about them being left field only. Catchers, guys that are shortstops that can maybe play a few positions, even if it's especially if they're shortstops that move to third base. And I think we have a handful of those. We don't have a lot of like second base type of shortstops.
No,
but
it's up the middle.
Rock Riggio, who I love, who's a second base only guy, but
he could hell. Rock Riggio could end up in center.
He could, but it seems like he's moved to second base full time and is just set on being the next Joe Morgan. And I'm fine with it.
I think, and that kind of resonates with what you said. If you have up the middle talent, center fielders, shortstops, catchers, and they are a larger ratio in the first couple of rounds, it generally speaks towards the overall health of a draft class. It's really, really early, but this does look like it has the potential of being, as far as prep shortstops go, it might be one of the healthier prep shortstop classes in the last 10 years. I mean, really.
It is. As long as I've been doing this, and I've been doing it since 2014 into 2015, and this is by far, at this point, my watch list has way more prep shortstops and maybe just prep players. There's still some decent outfilders as well. We'll talk about that in a second. But let's sort of jump in then. Let's jump into the top 10. Why waste time? Lollygag. We got plenty of time to get into the weeds on these guys and really dig into who they are. And a lot of that will certainly come to fruition, especially on, prep players. We'll start to see and learn more about them as players. College guys, we're going to have to wait a little bit longer, of course. I think there's still a national team this year. I actually forgot to check on that before we came onto the air. But we have plenty of episodes for that to come into play.
Oh, yeah.
If that's the case and there's still those practices and stuff, then, that will be worthwhile. But I just don't know, what USA Baseball is doing around that. But probably something I should have looked up before the show. But regardless, let's move on here. Let's jump into the top 10. You want to count backwards down, or you want to go from one with the obvious number one, which is Kumar Rocker?
You know what? Yeah. Well, now that the cat's out of the bag, we might as well start at one. No, I mean, Kumar Rocker, he's one of the more famous, if you will, more polarizing, top-ranked players at the top of the class at this point in recent history. He's just, he's 6'4", 6'6", 6'4", 245 pounds. There's not a lot of physical projection even necessary at this point with this guy. You're talking about an imposing just bulldog on the mound that throws 97, 98 with extreme tail into a hitter's hands if they're on the right side. And he's got a 70 slider. The only thing with Kumar, really, I think that everyone is looking for is he going to be able to take the command from 50 to 55 this year? Because if all of a sudden this guy comes out, the slider, I think you could make an argument it's already a 55 command pitch, but the fastball gets squirrely, and that's absolutely fucking terrifying for anybody that's at the plate. So if he learns how to dot that fastball, he's a 1-1. Like, I don't know how you can replace him at 1-1 if he's spotting the fastball more consistently.
Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest thing. I was going to say as you were going on about Rocker is it's almost like the stuff is all there. He has the pitches. Certainly it wouldn't shock me if he added more of a changeup. He really uses the curveball more as that.
Mm-hmm.
Works off of that 70 slider. Curveball is one of those things where there is projection there, but I think a lot of that comes down to feel. It's going to be the same thing with a fastball. And we know that one thing that most teams nowadays are doing fairly well is once players coming into the system and sort of tightening up and tweaking those things. I think Kumar Rocker is enough of an athlete that that's not going to be an issue.
Oh, yeah.
And he's enough of a pitcher. I think that's the thing, too, is the command control isn't necessarily there. But there's a lot of other sort of characteristics in terms of sequencing and, his willingness to pitch inside and just sort of go after guys. And I think the mentality with him, it's a little bit old school, is it's sort of, here's my stuff, try and hit it. And he has the stuff to be able to do that. It's just a matter of forcing guys to swing, forcing guys to try to catch up to that, fastball up in the zone, or, get a barrel on that slider, which is probably not going to happen. But you do that by throwing strikes. And that's the biggest, sort of disconnect between where he is right now and where he sort of needs to be the player that we think he is. And I don't think any teams are going to push back on that unless some really bad analytical data sort of starts to come out on him or trickles out next year, which is one of the things I think that sort of knocked down Emerson Hancock off of that high podium that he was on for so long as the top player in the class. Unless we start to see a movement like that, and maybe there's, some characteristics and traits with Jack Leiter or Hill stays healthy and we see that, then maybe there's some conversation there. But I think right now, Rocker, for me, and I know not everyone agrees with this, is sort of the unquestioned number one.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination too of Kumar Rocker being the guy that he is for so long. I mean, he's been that imposing force on the mound. He's got the big body. He's got the durability. He missed one start this year that I think a lot of people chalked up to just rest, just general soreness from lifting. But he's never been a guy that's been beat up. He hasn't missed very much baseball at all. And it's easy to admit, like, there are guys like Jaden Hill. There are guys like Jack Perkins. There are guys like Jack Leiter who you could make the case, well, why aren't they getting number one consideration? It's because Kumar Rocker is just built like you want to see him, And hey, let's say Jack Leiter comes out and starts throwing 95, 96.
Yeah.
Then there's a conversation to be had, because you could make a pretty solid argument that Jack Leiter is a little bit more polished with the command at this stage.
Sure.
But as it stands right now and everything in front of us, it's 1-1.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Leiter and Hill in a few moments. But I think they're both in play. I mean, it's not unreasonable if somebody ranked one or the other above Rocker. But I think there's just a little bit more safety in it, and I just don't need to fight it. It just seemed like it's like, all right, it's fluid. It makes sense. Now let's move on to number two. Man, I got to tell you, I want to push this guy to one, but reasonably, he probably won't be the number one pick. That's Judd Fabian, outfielder from Florida. We saw him start in his freshman year. To a degree, incredibly young. He was an early enrollee. I think people sort of forget that.
Yeah, he's going to be 20 for this draft.
Exactly. I think he actually could have been a not early enrolled, could have been a prep player. They would have been in the 2019 draft. So he would have been last draft class. But
as a 17-year-old, as like a 17 and 7 months.
And he was playing at Florida. So and starting. So that sort of tells you who he is. He came down the Cape, and I thought legitimately, you can see some of the video that was retweeted today, I thought he was one of the better bats that I saw down the Cape, just flat out. Had he been in this class, he would have easily gone in the first round for me. I thought he was right up there with Wells and some of these other guys when you noticed how young he was and sort of the whole backstory and some of the other tools that he has. Because he's not a center fielder, but I think he's pretty comfortably a right fielder based on his arm and, his defensive ability. I don't know if he maybe grows out of, we'll say fringe 60 to 55 run times from what I saw last summer. But we'll see. And I love the swing. Really, really compact, classic, loft heavy, right swing, but he doesn't sell out for power either. So Fabian's a guy for me that's just right at the top of the draft. Does he go number two? Maybe not. Maybe he goes 8, 9, 10. I don't care. But I think you're getting a legitimate above average everyday major leaguer with an upside for stardom. He's a little safe maybe in some regards, but I still think there's a little bit more there in the tank. And just in terms of juice in the bat, because at such a young age against advanced pitching, guys that were 3-4 years older than him with good break and stuff that had been in against college competition for 2-3 years, maybe even 4, some of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was still barreling up, and he looked even better, you know, in the early going. So, yeah, for me, Fabian is an easy number 2. Do you have any thoughts on Fabian? I'm kind of stealing the thunder here.
No, I mean, hey, Fabian's your guy. I mean, by all means. No, I really like Fabian. I think we probably should have clarified how this list was created. So Ralph made a top 50. I made a top 50. We took the aggregate averages and put together this list. And Fabian wasn't far behind. He was 4 for me. Everything that you said really resonates. I mean, for a guy his age, to look as composed and balanced and polished and just he knows the strike zone. He covers every quadrant of the strike zone. He turns and burns on low and inside. It's a really advanced hitter. And being that he's only going to be 20 and a half, that's going to be super, enticing to teams because like you said, there is more in the tank. And he's one of those guys that, not a lot of people know this, but a 5-tool player is someone that is just better than average at everything. And Jed Fabian has proven that I think he could easily be 55 at every tool. I think you're probably right that he's probably a corner outfielder. I'd give him a shot in center just because he can run and see how it goes. But yeah, you're talking about a guy that has an advanced hit tool and he's tapping into more and more power. And honestly, he's a guy that when the college season starts, you could see his name shoot up draft boards with a strong performance.
Yeah, and he's a center fielder now. He's an absolute center fielder, but he also has the kind of body that he could probably add like 25 pounds of muscle and be like that classic like 3-hitter right fielder type, Mm-hmm. But it was all center field pretty much his freshman year as a starting center fielder. He was a center fielder for Bourne for 24 games. He played some left field as well. I saw him in a corner. And he was the center fielder once again for Florida. So I think it sort of tells you, based upon the amount of like really talented athletes that are in that Florida system, who he is.
As a freshman.
And as a freshman, you look at the slash line, it was like 232, 353, 411. The batting average, whatever. He walked at like a 12% rate as a freshman in the SEC. That's crazy. And then, you see what he did down the summer with Bourne. It's really hard to hit for power in the Cape. Like if you have a 500 slug, it's like having like a 700 slug in the California League. It's one of those sort of the PCL. It's one of those sort of situations. He slashed 290, 350, 500 over 35 games. So he played the entire season with 6 homers. He hit for power down the Cape. And he did that at 18 years old. There are not a lot of guys that do that at 18 years old. There's
not a lot of 18-year-olds at the Cape.
No, and there's not a lot of guys that do that at 23 down the Cape. And it was the same thing. We saw more of a power breakout. 294, 407, 603 through the first 17 games of this season with 5 homers. And it just, for me, he's just an impressive all-around player.
Yeah, and the walk rate didn't fall either. I think that's important to note. Like, this guy takes his walks. He knows the strike zone. And the only knock on Fabian that I've been able to identify through looking at the numbers and looking at the film, yeah, he strikes out. Right now, I think he's running like a 21 or a 22 in the SEC, which that's not bad. He's 18 years old in the SEC, running a margin. It's an average strikeout rate. It's not that bad. So, I think the player he could have a meteoric rise.
And he'll get banged on breaking balls, but I think the biggest thing with me, with Fabian is he's got a good balance of sort of passiveness and aggressiveness, and he sort of sits in the middle. So he'll go after stuff if he thinks he can hit it. And sometimes, he'll swing and miss, or he'll take pitches that he shouldn't. I think that's part of why his strikeout rate's a little higher. That he grinds out at bats. And that's a trait that I put a lot more stock in than just a straight flat, K rate. Because I think a lot of people will look at the numbers and sort of get caught up in that. They really shouldn't, and I think that that's indicative of somebody who is trying to hit for impact. and trying to drive the ball. They're willing to take some of those daddy hacks and go after stuff and go hunting for fastballs. And Fabian will do that. But he's also patient enough to wait for his pitch. He'll take breaking stuff on the outside and make you challenge him. So it's a really good characteristic to see from a 19-year-old player. Guy that'll be 20 at draft time next year. Let's move into number 3, Mason McClay's favorite player.
Yes.
Number 1 on his board, Jack Leiter. Talk to me a little bit about Leiter. Obviously, a big New Jersey prep player, a guy that could have been a first-round talent back in 2019 out of Del Barton, along with his teammate Anthony Volpe, which I think eventually was for the Yankees. Yep. It was also heavily rumored for the Yankees. The money just wasn't there, I think, and the right organization for Leiter. He'll be back in the draft this year, demanding another huge paycheck.
Oh, yeah.
Is he worth it? Talk to me a little bit about Jack Leiter.
Well, I think so. I mean, Jack Leiter. So to Mason's credit, we give him a hard time because he is in the slight minority and he does hold his sign for Jack Leiter. Yeah. So the thing about Leiter is he's more. I mean, frankly, at 19 or 20 years old now, he's more polished than Kumar Rocker is in terms of command. Yeah. The problem is, Jack Leiter's like 92 on most nights. He's like 91 to 93. But he's got a 60 curveball. He's got a 60 slider. He's got a changeup that he uses well. It's not quite at the level of the 2 breaking balls. Honestly, the guy is like 2 or 3 miles an hour away, kind of like the Reed Detmer syndrome, right? He's 2 or 3 miles an hour away from being like consensus next to Kumar Rocker 1-1. Because if this kid comes out next year and starts throwing 94, 95, 96, touching 97 for Vandy, which I think is possible despite his size. He's only 6'1", like 195. He's not a very big kid. Neither was his dad. But if he somehow finds a couple more ticks in the velo, you can't not talk about this kid as the first overall pick because he knows how to pitch. He knows how to pitch. I would argue he knows how to pitch better than Kumar Rocker. He keeps batters. He gets ahead with curveballs. I mean, it's just a really advanced profile for a kid his age.
The pitchability is off the charts. I think that's the big thing you see. He's able to land his fastball to both sides of the plate. That's one of the first things that I sort of hone in on, especially with some of these younger guys, is how good is that fastball command? I mean, really think for any pitcher, but he has excellent feel for his fastball, regardless of it not having like a ton of movement and some of those characteristics. I'd love to learn a little bit more. But just from the naked eye, I think you can, sort of pull some of that stuff just from, seeing him live and watching tape. I'm interested to see the sort of things that he can tweak on his fastball beyond just sort of, raw velocity. I would like to see him add a few ticks, but I also would like to see, how efficient that fastball is and what the access is on it. Some of that stuff. That's some of the information that we started to get a little bit later on in draft time that I thought understanding why a guy like Mayer might move to the top of the draft was a little bit easier to understand. We started to get some of those characteristics and understand, look, this guy is really special from an analytical perspective. And we'll learn more about that stuff, of course, as well. And I'm sure some of that information's out there, and I'm sure he's making some tweaks. The question I have on Leiter that I wonder is the curveball right now, I think, is used more than the slider, maybe.
I think so, too.
I think I like the slider better because the curveball was, like Detmer's, it's a loopy overhand. It's a big curveball.
It's a get-ahead curveball is what it is.
I don't know if pitches like that work anymore. Like I think when because of what the trajectory of that is out of the hand and it breaks that tunnel path so early that it's really easy to pick up on.
At the next level, especially.
Maybe not, against some of the competition you're seeing in midweek games. Maybe not even against SEC competition, but I think once you get up into the higher levels, you get up against advanced hitting in AA, AAA, of course, the major leagues. I think that those guys can pick up on that because they're the best of the best of the best, and they can tee off on it, or they can lay off of it,
right?
Make you throw your fastball. And if you don't have that velocity there, then that's the question. I think that's the thing that I worry about with Leiter is I want to see a little bit more of the changeup and slider because I think that's more of a pathway to success. Because I don't see him changing the style of his curveball that much. He's not going to throw a tight curveball. If you throw a curveball like that, you're not going to switch it up and throw a tight one. It's probably happened before. I'm so sure someone will give me an example, but off the top of my head, I can't think of somebody that threw a loopy curveball like that changes something that wasn't a slider variation.
Yeah.
You know? To just actually, because it's hard to do. I think it will work for now, and I think he shows advanced pitchability. I think a lot of that comes down to his sequencing too. You mentioned it before. He'll go early with the curveball. You know, he'll double up on his secondaries as well. You know,
he makes it look easy too.
He'll look to. I don't know how much he's working with scouting reports and some of those things, but he looks like a guy that understands weaknesses and is able to attack those. And I think that's a characteristic that at this point in draft season, with the college season we had, I don't think we can undersell that. So
yeah. One thing that I want to add really quick before we move on is the argument behind the loopy curveball and how it has this giant track record of success in big league ball. The examples that I always hear thrown out are, well, it worked for Kershaw. Like if Kershaw can throw this curveball and anybody can throw this curveball. The thing is, though, nobody ever adds into that conversation that Kershaw threw 97 and Kershaw threw a 91 mile an hour slider and he threw a changeup that had so much teeth and a cutter too.
And wild deception. Like the deception that comes from, you know, obviously his arm action and then his wild lower half and all that and closing off and everything. Like,
that's not Jack.
There's not many guys that can do that. Like, you could see a million guys that could imitate Clayton Kershaw that can never do it successfully. You know, he's just such a I mean, but you can't. It's like a 5'10" righty, and like everyone be like, oh, he could be Pedro. Like it's no, those are unique.
The Pedro thing,
you know.
Someone called Jared Jones the next Pedro, and it made me sick.
Every year there's one.
I know.
Every year there's one. It was Anderson Espinoza and
I know
Sanchez. You know, and right on down the line, you know. So there's always one. There's always somebody throwing out there. And I'm a guy that happens to like small right-handers, and it seems like the world is catching up because of the arm angle and sort of the tunnel that the fastball can come out of with some of these right.
Yeah, you can let it ride.
Yeah, we'll see. You know, short righties all of a sudden they're in vogue, and I'm kind of digging it. But let's move on to number 4 and Jaden Hill of LSU. Electric. It's the first thing that we have here in our blurb, and I think it's spot on. It's very much the way that I would describe his stuff. Huge ride on the fastball, you know,
easy
upper 90s gas, you know, nasty slider. You get the picture, you know, one of those sort of guys. So this is the guy that you're really dreaming on. This is the guy that if he comes out and he pushes and outperforms Kumar Rocker, I think and he throws strikes and he's healthy. It's a big thing. He's a guy that has a lot of 1-1 consideration just because of the type of stuff that he has. He can certainly challenge for that position. Just hasn't been on the big stage, hasn't pitched in the College World Series. Some of those things that Rocker obviously has going for him.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and it's easy 98. I mean, it's clean. It's too bad that he suffered the injury that kept him out. I think he's only got like 18 innings or he doesn't have very many collegiate innings in him, but you're right. I mean, he's not really all that dissimilar from Kumar Rocker. He's also 6'4". He's all of 220. He's got the same fastball with late life ride tail. I mean, he can do a lot with it. It's every bit of a 70 slider that he can roll up there in the high 80s. And then he's got a changeup as well that is squarely behind those other two pitches. But if he shows that he can use it more, it's only going to help his draft stock. No, I totally agree with you. If Jaden Hill is, your flavor when 1-1 comes around and all he does is dominate for, 60 or 70 innings next year, it's really hard to draw a firm line between the difference between the two, with the exception that Kumar Rocker has just done it a little bit longer. I love the player. And, these are really the three guys at the top, the three arms at the top that are distinctly ahead of the pack in terms of college pitching.
Well, number 5, I'm not even going to say anything about. I'm going to kick it right over to you. Number 5, Marcelo Mayer, shortstop out of East Lake in California. It's your boy, man. You love this guy. So
I do.
Go on, King. Talk.
I do, man. I love Marcelo Mayer. He's my favorite prep in the class so far, at least of the position players. He's committed to Southern Cal. It is a sweet, powerful, lofty left-handed swing. He has excellent bat-to-ball skills. I would already project him at least a 55 hitter just with the tape that I've seen. And there's power there too. You're talking about a guy that may be able to tap into above average or even plus power at the next level. Also an above average runner. He posts impressive like 6.9, 6.88, 60 times. Now, that being said, he is 6'3". He's 185 pounds. So there's a ton of projectable weight that's left in his frame. So he might not be a plus runner by the time he gets to the league, and he might not even be a shortstop by the time he gets to the league. But his actions at the position make me dream on him sticking there, because he's got really soft, really smooth hands, good feet, quick actions. He's fluid. He's clean at the position. And like I said, this kid has incredibly broad shoulders. He's got long legs. There's going to be more impact weight and impact power that is added onto this frame. And if he proves over the next year that even with added weight, he can stick at the position, this is the one prep that I think could stick in the top 5. And there has not been too many prep shortstops, with the exception of like Bobby Witt in the last few years, that have actually gone in the top 5, because it's a volatile projection. But man, this guy, he just oozes potential for me.
And Royce Lewis too.
Royce Lewis went 1-1. That's true.
Hunter Green, I guess technically was partially a shortstop. I'm just kidding. But no, yeah, I know that Mayer's a guy that you love. I dug in a little bit more on him, and I echo all the sentiments that you said there. I love the swing, man. And there's so many good left-handed swings in this prep shortstop class, but just class in general, but prep shortstop class. And he might be the prettiest. But let's move on to number 6, might be the most famous name that I think a lot of folks know coming into the draft from this prep class. Brady House, third baseman from Winter Barrow High School in Georgia. Big, strong guy, explosive power. I love the coil. We talked about this before. Had been a shortstop previously. He's already outgrown the position. You have some body concerns, I think. We were sort of digging in that before, but it's not a bad body. It's just that it's big and sort of like
strong.
It's lumberjack-esque.
It's thick. Let's just be honest.
It's less thick. Yeah, less pancake, more like a meat and potato strong kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like he's not. Yeah, I don't want to say that he's heavy, because it doesn't seem like
he's not lumbering either.
Yeah, exactly. But he's just like strong. Like he was built to chop down trees in 2 swings.
Yeah, this kid just looks like he plays ball for 18 innings a night and then goes home and knocks out 100 squats. Yeah,
exactly.
His lower half he's ripped. This kid is he's got incredibly broad shoulders. He's got quads the size of like a 30-year-old. I'm 30. They're twice as big as my quads. But no, the issues. So Ralph had him at 3. I had him at 14, and that's how he ended up here. The issues that I have with Brady House are I just want to see how the body develops. Some of the film from this past weekend at PBR showcase, I don't remember which event it was, but he looks lean. He looks strong. He looks like he's moving well. There's some things about his swing that I don't love, but I don't hate him either, because it's really a strong cut and it's a balanced cut for his age. There's a little bit of excess head movement that gets going there when his swing gets long, but you can't argue with like insane track record. This kid just beats the hell out of the ball in every showcase. And yeah, if you were to pick one prep in this class that is in top 5 consideration, like right now as a position player, it's Brady House, because he looks the part.
It's controlled violence. I think that's the best way to sort of describe. He doesn't get into his back hip a ton, but his coil is nuts. He opens up so much as I think we sort of set off. You had mentioned off air toward third base. As he in his follow through, it's insane. tons of weight transfer there, and that's why he generates so much torque and power. And then, of course, raw strength as well. Speaking of raw strength, the guy who hits some mammoth shots as well, Miami catcher Adrian Del Castillo. I caught him down the Cape as well. Really exciting player. He's got to improve behind the plate if he plans to stick there long term. But I don't know. I think he's the kind of guy that could potentially make a run at third base. Maybe be a first baseman, possibly.
He runs okay. You could stick him in left field. He kind of got a little bit of the Kyle Schwarber thing going on.
Yeah, I was going to say, or even sort of left field. But yeah, he's very Kyle Schwarber in that sense. Ton of field to hit. Good plate discipline, good pitch recognition skills, in my opinion. And he mashes too. I mean, he makes tons of hard contact. What are your thoughts on Del Castillo? I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see him.
Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of him. I think on the Schwarber comp, he's in way better shape than Schwarber was at this point. He runs pretty well. He's 6 foot 190, 6'1", 200, something like that. He's pretty lean for a guy that's listed at 200. Sweet left-handed stroke. Another guy that looks like he's going to have an above-average hit tool that runs into a fair amount of power. So he's just. It would appear as though he's a kid that is going to be drafted for his bat and not for, what he can provide in value behind the plate or on the diamond. But it is a special bat. It's a special college bat that, especially if they move him out from behind the plate, he should fly through a system.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm just, I'm hoping people don't get scared off with shades of Zach Collins being like, oh, he's a hit first power guy from Miami. That's not really a catcher, but I was like writing this and I'm like, God damn it, I'm writing about Zach Collins because I didn't know how much he was going to strike out in college. Like we didn't have like an idea that he was like, oh, this is going to be like a 30% strikeout guy with a total hole in his swing. Yeah. I don't think Del Castillo is that guy. I saw them within weeks of each other this summer, and I can tell you that I think Del Castillo's hit tool was better now. So that's part of it. And there's a few catchers in this class. It's not. I don't know if it's not last year's class where it seemed like there were a bunch of them, even though a bunch of them ended up going to school as well. Mm-hmm. But there's a couple here at the top, and we'll get into Ian Moeller, who's the top one in the prep class in just a few seconds. But why don't we jump into number 8, Braylon Bishop? He's a guy that we spoke about before we got on air as we were sort of discussing this class from a high level. Really exciting talent. There's monster juice there. There's also some questions. We got to be careful with him a little bit. We don't want to go too crazy. I want to go crazy and be like, oh, this guy could be a top 5 in the class, but he's still got to progress. I guess there's still sort of some hit tool questions, some of those things. But oh my God, the speed at which this guy gets his barrel through the zone it's
the fastest bat in the class.
It's alien. It's alien.
It's the fastest bat in the class.
Yeah, it's not plus bat speed. It's not plus bat speed. It's alien bat speed. It's like
it's extraordinary. Like, what are we doing here? Like, call meteorology. This is an issue. No, I mean, Bishop is this kid that, speaking of opening your hips, like this kid's hips are in the dugout. I mean, he tornadoes to the ball. It's almost like a Happy Gilmore kind of thing. But I think the thing with Braylon Bishop is he doesn't need to do it. He doesn't need to swing out of his socks because he's strong as hell. And when he barrels the ball up, it's going over the fence without, corkscrewing. So he's the type of player that wouldn't shock me if he goes 3, wouldn't shock me if it goes in the 30th round. He's just that player. I mean, the showcase circuit is going to be everything for him because it's going to prove how advanced the hit tool is right now.
Yeah, and I think that's what, we'll sort of leave it there. We got PG National coming up. We got Showcase Circuit coming up. So we're going to see a lot of these guys over an extended period of time, and they're going to be exposed that there's some flaws there, or they may show up and, show and prove and move up the list and be a lot more of those guys to come as we run through here. I want to, in the trying to make up time here. I'm running out of words. But let's keep rolling. So number 9, Luke Leto one of two really interesting shortstops from the Michigan prep ranks. Big shout out to Brian Sikowski. Luke Leto, two-sport star, probably a bigger star in baseball than he is in football. He's an LSU commit. Portage. Oh, I think it's Portage Central.
Yep, Portage. It's Portage. I mean, people are calling this kid the best shortstop to come from Michigan since Derek Jeter.
Yes, there's been a lot of Derek Jeter comps.
Yeah. Which is brutal.
But yeah, so talk to me a little bit about, what your thoughts are on Leto. Now, is he committed to play two sports at LSU? I wasn't able to find that anywhere, that he was actually committed to play football at LSU.
I'm not sure. I know that they brought him in as a highly touted quarterback. As far as if he's going to play baseball, I mean, I'm sure he's going to, fight for it. These guys don't want to give up their flexibility and versatility to go into either sport. So, but no, and just in speaking on Leto, like, you're talking about a guy that he's a tremendous athlete. Obviously, he's got a nice, controlled left-handed swing and plenty of body to grow into more power. He's already projected to have some impact power at the plate. But I think what you're kind of banking on here is he's 6'2", he's 190, and he's got pretty good actions at shortstop. I know, Ralph, you and I are both a little bit lower on Leto than the rest of the world, if you will. There's some top 3 consideration being thrown around on him, but for me, I think there's more refined prep shortstops in this class on the defensive side that stick out for me. What about you?
I don't know. There's a lot of good swings in this prep shortstop class.
I think offensively he brings more to the table for me than he does defensively.
Yeah, is that what you're saying? I'm sorry. I think and what you're saying.
I think at the plate
they bring more at the plate than they do in the field. I agree with that.
I think this guy brings like obvious future impact at the plate. Like, I don't think the bat's going to be the issue. I don't know if he's a shortstop. There's better, quicker, cleaner, twitchier actions at the position for me.
Especially in this class. I mean, there's guys that, probably didn't make our top 50 that are in that sort of conversation.
Oh, for sure.
Ian Moeller, top prep catcher. Wahlert High School in Iowa.
Wahlert.
I think I said that correctly.
I think so.
Unlike the very simple Portage that I pronounced as Portuguese because I'm Portuguese, and that's the slur term that we used for each other. Anyway.
I'll take your word for it.
Really, really, really interesting prep bat, really, at the catcher position. Certainly can stick behind the plate. He's got the arm for it. Dude, I love that righty swing. There's a ton of, as you mentioned here, a ton of present power.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful bat path.
That's what I wanted to say. The angle on the bat path is perfecto, chef's kiss. That's the thing. Exactly. It's beautiful. What are your thoughts on him, man? I guess the question I always have with prep catchers is how much are they going to fall from now until draft time, just in terms of rankings? Or do you think this is a guy that could stick around because he could play at different positions, almost like a Soderstrom?
No, I mean, he's going to stick behind the plate, I think, which is obviously going to help his value. But I guess he's kind of a combination between. No, you know what? He's not even a combination of Romo and Soderstrom. He's kind of his own thing. I think being a prep catcher is going to hurt him on draft day, just because it's really tough to be a prep catcher and get drafted very high. But this kid's going to stay behind the plate, and he looks like he's got an impact bat. He's not a runner. I'll just throw that out there. He's a well below average runner, but I don't know if that matters. If you've got a good arm, his pop times are good, and you're going to provide impact at the plate. You can't say that for Soderstrom, and Soderstrom was being mocked in the top 10. So I like him. I like Moeller a lot.
I think that's
a good swing.
What the bat will do for you as well. And just, the strength of the arm is the biggest thing. And if we do go for, I think we have to, anytime we talk about a catcher now and a prospect, we have to bring up robo umpires because it's all the rage. But if we do go that direction, he's got the arm. He's going to have to learn the other skills as much,
He kind of has to stay behind the plate because he can't run.
Well, maybe first base,
maybe.
And I never know with these guys in footwork and just, doing some off-season conditioning and agility training if they could become a decent third baseman if they have the arm. Because the biggest thing is the arm and the clean hands, and a lot of catchers already have sort of the glove for it.
Sure.
Paul DeYoung, former catcher, now a great shortstop. No one would have thought that, right?
That's not Ian Moeller.
Who knows? That's not Ian Moeller at all. All right. Matt McClain at number 11. Listed as a shortstop. I saw him play some third base, some second base. I've seen him play some outfield as well. He was down the Cape last year. Pretty decent Cape. Out of UCLA, he's breaking out a little bit. This is another guy I think that, at least in my mind, because I needed to sort of get over some of my Matt McClain will be too small to hit for a lot of power fears. Was kind of getting over that a little bit. Was showing it early this season. Showed it a little bit down the Cape. And I think he's probably a second baseman long-term. Maybe he plays third base. But he's kind of like a knockoff Bregman, I guess, in that sense. If you think he's a third baseman, fine. Hit tool's good. He can run. He's got bat speed, but I just don't know how much juice is in the bat. Like I said, he's not a huge kid. But he was starting to prove me wrong. So, Joe, you're a bigger McClain fan than myself. But I'm not low on him either. I still think he's a very good ball player. I think he's going to be in the top 20. But talk to me a little bit about your take on Matt McClain.
Matt McClain he's one of those guys that's like 50s across the board, and he always seems to outplay the 50s. How tall is he? Like 5'10", like 170, 5'10", 175. And he goes out and he hits. He hit really well this year. He was driving the ball out of the ballpark. And I think you're right. I think he's probably going to be a second baseman. And if while Nick Madrigal was an elite bat to ball guy, if Nick Madrigal can go as high as he did, I feel like Matt McClain can sneak into the top 5 or top 8 if he continues to prove next year that he has, fringe average power. So he's got a good arm. I mean, he's got 50 arm, 45 arm, plenty of range. He moves pretty well. He's not a liability in any way, and there's value there.
Yeah, no, I think he's a major leaguer. I don't think there's a question about that. But if things don't necessarily click in terms of impact with the bat, I guess there could be some utility there. And the big difference between him and Madrigal is the running, I think.
True.
Madrigal's faster. More of a base stealing asset. Not that teams really value that all that much anymore in these day and ages. But anyway, let's keep it moving. Number 12, Benny Montgomery, outfielder, Redland High School, Pennsylvania. So first Pennsylvania guy. He had this breakout not too long ago. I remember talking with our good buddy Brian Sikowski off air, who obviously sees all these kids for many, many years. And he was like, I remember the moment. He's like, I was there when he exploded and, just started to hit for more power and show a lot more with the bat. As you mentioned, loud tools, the tools are super loud. I'm very high on Benny Montgomery, but I tend to be high on guys like this that could have some swing and miss and some question in the hit tool if they got that monster juice in the Batman,
Yeah, no, he's got. I mean, this is a kid that has like if everything pans out, you're looking at a guy that like maybe has 3+ grades with the arm, with the legs, with the power. The bat speed that he gets is unreal. I mean, he's an outfielder. He's 6'4". He's 200 pounds. And the one thing so I have 2 things on Benny Montgomery that are kind of intangibles. One, he's got like Jared Kelnick's head on his shoulders. Like this guy either has to be the best or he's going to like kill people until he is. Like he is straight up dirtbag baseball lord, won't take any prisoners type of thing. And then the second thing is he's got like the most narrow shoulders. Like that, like he kind of looks like Cody Bellinger in Little League. Like just like droopy, narrow shoulders, and they don't look like they can add a whole bunch of muscle left on him. But man, he's a firecracker.
Yeah, and some of these guys are so young with their frames, and that stuff changes quick, man. You go from 140-pound, like 6-foot kid to a 200-pound man overnight. I know about it.
That's what happened to Bellinger. He was a lima bean.
Yeah, it's kind of what happened to me. I think I went from like a size like 24 waist. I was in like kid sizes to like
and then you drink a beer.
to like a 34, pretty steady for a decade plus. Thank you very much. But number 13, Christian Little, right-handed pitcher of the Christian Brothers in Missouri. Oh man, this dude is so long, lean. I love this kid. Arm is quick though. Gets excellent extension. It's one of the things that sort of sticks out to me when I see a guy like this. Arm action might be kind of long though, but a team can work on that. I love the frame, really long levers, good 3-pitch mix, fastball, curveball, changeup. It's just something there.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Little?
Well, Little's still only 16 too. I mean, he's
the youngest guy in the
class. 16. He's going to be like 17 and a half at draft time. So he's going to be younger than even Bitsko was. So yeah, I think he's probably going to be defined as a project when someone gets their hands on him. But he's 95, 96, good curveball, can spot it. I haven't seen too much of the changeup, to be honest, in the film that I've seen, but I've read good things. But the fastball curveball mix are pretty good for a 16-year-old.
And I think throughout this process, he seems like one of those guys for me that could go one direction or the other really quickly, depending upon performance and some of the other things. So I think his age will help him and we'll always keep him there. But he's a guy to watch for and just sort of see what happens and what develops. He could come out next week and just look, or in a few days, tomorrow actually, and just look incredible and go from there. Once again, in the interest of time, I'm going to try to just go through the top 15 here today. We're going to go through some more prep guys. That will save a little teaser. Then we have even more guys to go through next week and the week after. And then we'll sort of go a la carte and freestyle it as news happens and we get some information. But, I want to give him the appetizer, maybe a little bit of the sorbet, Joe, and then be like, you're going to have to wait, another 25 minutes and get you real hungry for that, that entree. I want to think it's the best thing you've ever eaten. So there you go. Number 14, Tyree Reed, outfielder from American Canyon High School in California. I believe he's an Oregon State commit.
Finally, a West Coaster.
Yeah, West, baby. Talk to me. You got your West Coast boy. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, man. He's super projectable, lean frame, power projection. He's probably the fastest guy in the class that we've talked about so far. I'd say he's plus speed right now. Good instincts. He's able to track down balls in center field just fine. I don't know if there's any question that he's going to stick in center, which is obviously huge for your draft stock. Biggest thing with him is, and especially with center fielder preps, is he going to hit? Is he going to hit for power? It's kind of hard to say right now, but he's got a big frame at 6'2" that suggests he's going to be able to do some damage with the bat. He just has to show it this summer. I mean, it really boils down to that.
Yeah, I totally agree. But he's a fun one to watch. He's one of those guys that you could sort of dream on and being just an absolute sort of star on both sides of the ball, because he is a guy that we talked about before, an up the middle prep player. There's a lot of value in that, especially if you're a guy that can play center field and you got that athleticism and it's something that's going to age pretty well. Those are guys that teams do want to make investments in. I think Tyree Reed is one of those guys and definitely a name to watch. Let's jump into number 15, the last player that we'll cover on the show today. That is Isaac. I want to say Pacheco because I'm Portuguese, but Pacheco, shortstop out of Texas, Friendswood, top player in Texas this year. He's a big dude too. 6'4", already over 200 pounds. It's lean, strong, muscular, another left-handed swing, another guy with natural loft. And I describe it as smooth and rhythmic motion. And I think that's the best way to sort of describe it when you watch him. Everything's on time, just in terms of, hip, hand, shoulder, it's all in line. And there's no question about, him sort of not lacking timing, missing with the barrel. I really like Pacheco's swing as well.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to move off of shortstop just because of how big he is and how big the power is already present. Kid can put on 15 more pounds and still look proportional. I mean, he's a monster. He's got really good hands. I mean, he really does have hands that would suggest that he can stick at the position, but I don't think there's any chance he ends up there. He's probably a third baseman or a corner outfielder because he's got a monster arm. I think he's going to be one to watch because you're going to want to see where he ultimately ends up. There's some swing and miss. It's a smooth swing, but he can do some daddy hacks every now and then against lesser competition. So I'm excited to see how Pacheco progresses this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. There you have it. The top 15 on the list. As a teaser, I'll throw you number 5 names. Colton Cowser, outfielder from San Houston State. We mentioned at the top of the show. Ethan Wilson right behind him from South Alabama, another outfielder. We also mentioned South Alabama at the beginning of the show.
Yep.
Another Michigan prep infielder, guy that I think I might have had one spot ahead of Leto. Alex Mooney from St. Mary's Prep High School. And then number 19, Alex Benelis, third baseman from Louisville. Didn't see him this year, but you would have seen him last year if you watched the regionals and the College World Series. Benelis had a starting role there. And then number 20, Jordan Lawler, another shortstop from the Texas Prep ranks. That's Dallas Jesuit High School. It's our top 20.
I got one more for you, Ralph.
Sure, give me one more.
We got, both you and I have 115 more names on this list. So top 50 only. Give me one guy that stands out for you that you think could shoot up the list and make their debut in a few weeks.
In a few weeks? Oh, just in a top 50.
Yeah, just shooting up from maybe 30, 40 and getting to like the top 12.
That's an interesting question. Because I'm trying to look now at who's back there, and like I'm just trying to off the top of my head. You put me on the spot there, man. But I appreciate it.
How about this? I'll give you a second, and
I know you're gonna say Josh Baez, dude. Because
I'm not
my Boston boy, right?
I'm not gonna say Baez.
My clutches.
I won't say Baez. I think the guy that I'm looking forward to seeing more of is Andrew Painter. Big old right-handed prep pitcher out of Calvary Christian, 6'7", 220 pounds. He's a Florida kid. Right now he's like 94 to 96, and it is, maybe with the exception of Mick Abel, it's some of the easiest high velo you can find, and he stays really nice and synced up for his size. So Florida commit, if he goes out and just torches kids over the next few weeks, he's a guy that I could think could be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, I don't hate that one at all. Digging a little bit deeper here, a name that I've liked for a little bit. The other Maxwell Muncy,
nice.
Thousand Oaks out of California, Arkansas commit. He's an interesting name. He's a guy that I didn't initially rank and sort of forgot about entirely, but I like Maxie's swing a lot, and I think he's a guy that potentially could push his way up here with a decent performance. I got to check those rosters. Was Muncy on the PG National roster? I don't think I saw his name.
There was 400 names on there. I did not search for Muncy in particular.
I know. I was looking like, what team is Riggio on? What team is Little on? This, etc. But I'll have to do that off air and sort of go from there. But he's certainly a guy that's ranked relatively highly. He's been a guy, toolsy, sort of on the national stage for quite a bit. Tons of bat speed, and I love any of these prep hitters with bat speed. That's the thing that always sells me. So Maxwell Muncy would be a name that I'll throw out there because he's a guy that I don't think I had initially in my top like 120, but should have been on my initial watch list. I'm a sucker for doing that. Joe, thanks for putting them on yours and reminding me so I could then pull that rabbit out of a hat at the end of the show. Anything else you want to say to the people out there before we wrap up our first edition here? We'll be back next week, of course.
Not really, man. This top 15, I'll just say this. Top 50, very fluid. Looking forward to getting more information and looks at these kids because the 15 really just scratches the surface. There's truly 130 kids that we have here that you could make an argument in one way or another have first round value.
And we didn't make it really verbose this time. We'll save that for the rankings as we get longer. Top 50 should be in the site. We're recording this on Tuesday, but it's getting released on Wednesday. Sort of shorter blurbs just to give you an overhead. Take a look. We're going to build that list out bigger and bigger and bigger and go from there until we have all of our full rankings and sort of document stuff throughout the process. Should be fun and a new wrinkle for this year as we get more organized with our draft coverage. And we're still going to plan on doing the same things with YouTube videos, team previews a year from now when we get closer. We're still going to do another mock draft, and we'll still do draft coverage as well. So a lot of stuff to keep your eyes peeled for on the YouTube page, as well as on the podcast page. We're going to be rolling out a lot more podcasts that don't involve myself for once. So that should be good for everybody as well. But thanks for tuning into the first episode of the Prospects Live MLB Draft podcast, video podcast.